Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Kieran Berry here. Really excited. This week we'll be interviewing head coach Chris Ney, and we'll find out how shoulder injury took him from playing to coaching. I'd really like to give our sponsors, Shane and Athena from Workplace Law, a shout out for always supporting us on and off the field. Hey, Chris Ney, how's it going?
Good, Kiz. Good. And yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks. Can you please introduce yourself to the people listening today?
Sure. My name's Chris Ney and I'm the head coach of the Southern District's Rebelettes rugby team.
That's good. Well, the first question, getting straight into it, is I wanted to find out a little bit of your past footy career. Obviously, you got a little bit of a knowledge about the game, so I want to know how that came about.
Yeah, it's not much of a career, if I'm honest, but I grew up in the Blue Mountains, which is in obviously Western Sydney, and so there's not much rugby union out there actually at all. So my first experience playing rugby was in high school when we had a team there. I was rugby league focused pretty much the whole way through and just played rugby for school, and I enjoyed it. But played rugby league at a few different sort of NRL clubs through the juniors and stuff like that, right up to New South Wales Cup level, and then sort of realised that those were getting a bit too big for me, and so had to make a switch and switched over to play rugby union. In the Shoot Shield, the Western Sydney clubs, there was two. There was Penrith and Parramatta, and I chose to go to Parramatta, which was still fairly close to my house at the time, back in the Blue Mountains, and they just had a bit more better opportunities there. So I started my Shoot Shield career there when I was 20, and then at the end of 2014, got asked to join New South Wales Sevens in sort of a train-on squad, and was lucky enough to eventually be made captain of that New South Wales Sevens team, and we won the national championship. So I guess that's where my Sevens stuff comes in. That saw me go up through to the Australian squad for about a 12-month period, just sort of that satellite training, not in the squad, but on the periphery, on the edge, I guess, for quite some time. Up there and ended up at Southern Districts because I'd moved to Cronulla at that point for work. And so I was working out of a place in Tarrant Point, so I moved to Southern Districts and played 3 more years there before my body gave up on me. So traditionally I was a fly half or a fullback, mainly a fullback when I did play.
That's awesome. Bit of a rainbow career there, jumping from spot to spot. It's really cool to see that you have the dictionary on rugby down pat, so that's cool. My next question is, you touched on the fact that you moved here for work. A lot of coaches find managing a team a full-time gig, but you actually work full-time outside of that. Could you tell me a little bit about that, how you manage a full-time job as well as a full-time team?
Yeah, sure. So I'm the general manager of Wheelchair Rugby Australia, which is an awesome sort of gig, and I'm really engaged in my work and I enjoy doing that. But I'm also traditionally a really busy person. If I wasn't coaching, a lot of people say, I don't know how you fit it in, but I don't know what I would do if I wasn't doing stuff like this. Knowing me, I'd probably be out training or doing something anyway. So in that regard, I don't actually find it too difficult. And the other part is the girls in our program work really hard themselves. So it'd be a bit hypocritical of me to ask them to work and keep asking them to do things if they can't see that I'm prepared to work hard too. So I like to set an example by, the admin's always on point, or I'm always, like, I was about to say always early, but I wasn't last week and I copped about that, so I won't say that. But, try and at least prove that, like, if they work for me and they're going to do what I ask of them, then there'll be no stone unturned in return, I suppose.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we'll come back and touch on culture there. My next kind of thinking is, you mentioned before that your body kind of gave out on you at the end of your footy career. Can you tell me how you actually ended up in the Rebelettes in 2018 and what adjustments you had to make coming in as a fresh coach?
Yeah, sure. So it was a big surprise, to be honest, and I wasn't really overly open to coaching, particularly a women's team, I suppose, at the time. only 26, I think, when it happened, and 26, 27, and so a lot of the girls my age and things like that. But basically, the end of the 2017 season, I had a really bad rib injury in a semi-final. I broke three ribs, my rib cartilage, and it punctured a small part of my lung and then my spleen. So I was in hospital for, a fair while, and they sort of said, oh, look, you're probably never going to play again. And I was sort of getting used to that. And I sort of came back, and in typical sort of fashion, I was just training over the off season, and eventually just started hitting all my markers to return. And so I saw someone and they said, yeah, look, you should be fine to come back for 2018. And it was the first trial of that year, the next year. So I still wasn't due to coach. And I put the ball down when I scored a try, and I dislocated my shoulder. And then I think then after, a build up of, I had struggled the year before my rib injury with injuries, and then like to have some major injuries like that, like I was out of pocket a lot financially to get my shoulder reconstruction. For work, I was sort of on contract at the time. So when I had my ribs and I was I couldn't move for a month. It sort of really plagued me, not mentally, but in the fact that it's like, look, I need to really start thinking about what I do after this. It was then when the club approached me and said, well, I was the club captain at the time. They said, well, look, to stay involved, would you coach the women? And I said, no way. I was like, oh, like they're all my age, and I've never coached before, and I was pretty nervous about it. And then sort of marinated on me for a little bit, and they kept sort of pushing. It was Ken, our president, and he kept being like, mate, just do it for a bit and we'll get someone else in. And I did it, and then fallen in love with it. Really, really enjoyed doing it, and we got a great squad, and the rest is history, really.
Yeah, that's so good. That is the worst thing that could have ever happened to you and our team.
Yeah.
So you're now coaching a women's team. How has coaching the Rebelettes changed your outlook on women's sport, especially coming from a predominantly male-dominated club? What's that done for, your thinking, women's sport, all of that combined?
Yeah, it's interesting. I from Parramatta. When I was at Parramatta, they had a very strong women's team there. So I wasn't new to sort of females playing rugby or anything like that. But firstly, there's actually when you hear about inequality or things like that, you kind of can just mull over it, like if you're not involved directly. But there is actually some systemic things that you do pick up on, barriers that we keep seeming to break down, which is a really positive thing. So from that regard, just something from an opportunity standpoint and stuff, I'm now that I've sort of seen how hard the athletes work and things like that, I'm really supportive of that side of things. I think what's refreshing for me from an athlete point of view is coaching women is incredibly different to coaching boys. And I really like it for the fact that a lot of the girls that are playing haven't grown up playing the sport, whereas I grew up playing rugby league. I was playing rugby league at 6, and a lot of the boys that play footy, generally whether it's league or union, have done so themselves. And that means that they've been able to create a heap of bad habits in that time, really, because they're getting coached by community coaches that don't necessarily know what they're doing, or, just because they're big and strong and they're earlier developed than other kids, they'll run over them or through them, and they just think that they're a great player. Whereas we get women traditionally now playing the sport from, say, 16 up, and they're new, and they just come to you with these open eyes and open mind, and they're just like, what do I need to do next? And you can actually say something to them and say, this is where you need to improve, and you can see that they'll go away and improve on it. I also think that they're a little bit smarter, I think, women, in terms of like, can say this needs to happen for this reason, and you can see it actually getting done. They can absorb information quicker and do what you say a little bit as well. Because I think, again, you're getting them as they're women. So if you try to teach a young man what to do when he's, say, 9 or 10, it's probably in one ear, out the other. All they want to do is score tries, have fun, which is great. It's what you get. But if you get them, say, at 17, 18, 19, traditionally they're at uni, they've gone through the HSC, they've learnt how to learn, and they hear feedback, and they're really easily implementing it on the field, whereas with men it takes a lot longer to see change. With women it's more instant. So I really like it from that point.
Yeah, that's a cool outlook. I think a lot of people would never explain it like that, especially starting at an older age. They would just think, oh, years wasted. But I really like that mentality around it. It kind of mulls me over to my next question. You've got a saying, good players, better people. We have a few standards over at the Rebelettes. Can I kind of pick your brain about what they are and why you think, our team culture is so important?
Yeah, sure. This is something I think if I was to compliment our squad on one thing, it probably would be our culture. And often that's a term that in the coaching world is used far too frequently. But for us, it actually rings true, I think. It's a question to answer, but there's a few key principles we'll stick to. But we don't have any of those sort of strategy sessions where we identify our key words and this is what we're going to mark ourselves on for the year. It's more or less now. I've tried to bring it in so it's an unwritten rule of standards and expectations. And, there's the line that we expect and you can do whatever you want as long as you're above that line. If you start dipping down below that line, then we're going to have an issue and probably a tough conversation. So I guess in a roundabout way, I'll try and break it down so that the people at home listening can sort of get an insight as to how we strip it back. But when I strip it back, it all comes back to two key ethos. One is working hard, and the second one is achievement. And I think that's how I've tried to build our team culture. And it sort of works in a cycle. So when you work hard, you see achievement, and then once you achieve, you need to work harder to get the next one. It sort of works in a cycle that way. But I guess the principles that build that. I take footy really seriously, and so for me, I was never a gifted player. Like I'm short and not overly fast. Right, everything I've had to do in my football career, which is not much of a career, as I said, but everything I've had to do, I've had to work hard for, and I've had to really take pride and put effort in to get those results. And so for me, football at a good level, I look at Southern Districts and I see it as a rep club, and that means that we're a rep team. And so essentially we have to have pride in that and we have to put effort in for that. And so that's probably the first thing. I always wanted us to train with pride, play with effort, train with effort. That's sort of the first key thing that I would say that I'll always try to ram home to my teams is that if you're going to play here and you're going to do something, you do it well. And I think that's probably the first thing that attributes to that hard work. The second part would probably be the satisfaction of struggle or resilience, I guess. So getting satisfaction from working hard, getting fitter, getting better, learning. Like people will turn up for that. They'll come to training for that. They'll come and play for that. They will commit if they get that. You know what I mean? So I always want to put out challenging, thought-provoking, difficult sessions so that girls, it's like they're enjoying the struggle. They go, right, I know that I'm going to go to training, I'm going to get tested. Like I'm going to get fitter, but I'm also going to get pushed mentally, physically, and I'm going to become better. And I think that like once you have pride in what you do, which is the first point, and then you get that satisfaction of a struggle and really enjoy being pushed, I think that goes a long way in terms of the hard work side of things. Then when you come around to the achievement part of sort of the matrix that we have, people often say that sport, I guess, needs to be fun, and otherwise, if it's not, stop playing. Well, I sort of see people can mix fun with mucking around, and I think you get the most enjoyment when you do something well, and that's the same as anything in life. Like, and you can attribute that back to a multitude of examples, but enjoyment stems from from winning and from training hard, playing hard, and all that sort of stuff. And so I really try to get our teams, once they have endured that struggle, to actually enjoy the fruits of that labour. You know, if we win a competition, then go and enjoy it. Let's go and have a beer, or let's go and do something, because that also, I guess, brings in. I am impartial to having the odd beer, Kieran. I can see you laughing already when I said that. So we get our fun from competing, improving, and the positive experiences that we take from winning. And I think that then, so we've gone through the work ethic side, and now we're sort of coming around to the achievement side. The last point I think would be opportunity. I always like that. We flew to Borneo last year to play in one of the better sevens competitions in the world. We were due to fly to Alaska on Monday to play in that competition. Obviously, COVID had other ideas, but and also, I guess, the amount of Aon representative players that we've produced from Southern Districts as well means that if you come here and you have pride and effort in what you do, you enjoy the struggle, you enjoy sort of winning and achievement, then there will be opportunities for you as well. And those opportunities are international tournaments, playing in the Aon series, hopefully, and that sort of thing. And that whole cycle then comes back to that hard work and achievement ethos that we try and drive through the team. And it's something that I hold close to me, is that how good we seem to be at that. And that's something that now when we recruit or we get new girls on board, I'm pretty hard on them to make sure that they don't drop that. But if I could just sum it up, at the end of the day, positivity and standards and work ethic, that's all that's infectious. So I'm really blessed to have a group of core players with strong personalities that buy into that, because if a new person comes, they've got no choice, because that's where everybody else is at. And if they're not there, then it's really obvious. If you could imagine going to a team with a poor culture of bad work ethic and you were trying to almost bring that up, you'd be standing out, potentially not victimised, but people would notice you being like, oh, look at this, person trying too hard or whatever. We don't have that here. I think I guess we've created an environment where people can be the best version of themselves and they're not going to get in trouble for doing that. And I think that's pretty cool, I guess, where I was.
Definitely. And I think you hear it, a lot of the girls are so sold out for the professionalism that we kind of display at training, at games. And you even see girls coming from other clubs just being so stunned with just the high level of commitment that everyone has. And really, it's something that draws people in and keeps people there. So I love the high quality of footy and teamship that we show. And I really, I think that's awesome to have that. Sometimes...
Just before you go, that'll tie into a question you asked me earlier, was about thoughts on women's sport and how it's changed that. I think that's probably one of the systemic things that I've noticed, is that I've only ever been in high performance male environments. So the environment that I've tried to recreate with the women is something similar in terms of expectation and things like that. I'm not sure when you look across, when you look across the women's game, that all clubs are the same. And I think I'm seeing, when you said you're getting girls from other clubs, I think it is like women want to be treated the exact same athletes they deserve to be. And so if you provide an environment where they can do that and they can flourish, people are going to come to it at the moment. It's not as readily available in all different areas of Sydney or New South Wales or whatever. That environment, I would say, is probably it is for male sport. And I just wanted to touch on that back to your previous question.
Yep, glad that you did. Quality answer. We're going to shift to something probably more directed at you. Sometimes we can ask players, maybe in reviews or something like that, what are your strengths and what can you work on? So I'm going to ask you as a coach, what are your weaknesses and what would you say are your strengths, especially as a new coach?
Right. Tough one to answer again. I'll try and give you a couple for each. So strengths first. I think probably communication with my players would be a strength of mine. A lot of that, I guess, comes naturally, and I think it's a bit easier given I'm a similar age as well. There's not a gap there. We're sort of socially on the same level traditionally. So I think communication with players, but also that's built from the fact that I have had a lot of feedback from some of my players across when they've played Aon or different sort of sports before, and they're sort of saying like, oh, I could never get feedback or I could never get anything like that. So I always try to be as approachable and consistent, I guess, as possible. But I think the biggest thing there is drawing the line between professional versus personal conversations. So I think everyone knows that, like, if we're having beers after winning a comp or something like that, you can talk to me about anything and I'll be there having a laugh and carrying on. But, we can draw the line as soon as we cross over on the field and I need to say something directly to you about your football or something like that. it's no longer in a friendly manner, or in a friendly manner as in like, oh, we're mates, but can you do this? It's like this is a professional conversation. This has nothing to do with how we feel about each other as individuals, but professionally, you need to know this bit of feedback, etc. And I think that sort of works well. So I would say communication, probably coaching a team result. So I think identifying where we're strong, whether we're a fast team, light team, good on the ball or whatever, and coaching a game plan that would actually benefit us as a team. That'd probably be the main two, I would say. I do a lot of analysis on our competition when I can. So a lot of video review in tournaments like over in Borneo, or even sometimes here in Sydney if we can get hands on the video and stuff. So I think identifying, a team, the team we have, and knowing how best to play us is probably another one as well. In terms of weaknesses, I think there's a few. The key obvious one that I found, and this was more probably earlier on in my career, I'm trying really hard to change it, is that I was very black and white. So like, you fit this, and if you do not, we have issues. Whereas there needs to be a grey sometimes in coaching. When you're doing people management and things like that, and I'm doing that, there needs to be a grey area. And I think mine was very minuscule at the start, whereas now there is black and white, and there's things that I'm definitely not going to compromise on with our culture and stuff like that. But there's also different circumstances, different personality types, different individuals. And I think a good coach can work out a good grey area that sort of works for everyone. So I'm still working on that. That's a weakness of mine. I'd say when I just said I'm good at coaching to an individual result, I think really bigger picture team stuff, team strategy, gameplay. I think coaching an individual result is an area where I could probably improve on. I always get our team functioning really, really well, but individually picking out players and making them better, I could probably work on a little bit too. And I've got a few that I need to work on. Another one is letting go of control, and you'll laugh about this, but like, we've got a very capable team of staff. Like, Gus knows his stuff, and Brendan's been with us for a while, and we've just added Jack and Dom, and we've got Kat's dad. Like, I've got a good team of coaches. And at the start, I found it probably pretty hard to hand things over, whereas so I'm working on that as well. And the last one is I'm an emotional sort of guy, so I wear my emotions on my sleeve, and there's probably been a couple of times where I've let that get the better of me, and that was definitely earlier on. I think I am actually bringing that around a little bit, but sevens ebbs and flows, and you've got to understand that you could feel 5 different emotions in a day based on your 5 different performances. And so if the team sees me annoyed, then they think they've got a right to be annoyed. Or if they see me happy because we've won big, then they might take it, easy in the next game. So I trying to stay as mellow as possible, which is a challenge.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think sometimes we need photographers on the sideline, not taking photos of us, but just of you and your reaction to the game. It's pretty good to see. No, thanks for being honest with that. Really cool. This kind of question is a bit more of a finisher. The 2020 season is looking like it's going to go ahead. Do you have any aspirations for yourself as a coach, but also for the team this year? It might be a shorter season, but we've still got things to smash and carry on with.
Yeah, look, it's an interesting one. Obviously, the season's been changed. We are going to get some gameplay ahead. It would be great we won the Sydney competition last year, so I think that's a great goal to set. But more importantly than that, I think now it would be great to just establish ourselves as just the most consistent competitive team. Like, every single week that there's a competition, we turn up, we've got a good squad, we've trained hard, we've trained well for it, we've got depth, we've got, girls covering it, like girls playing well, and anyone, just build our brand across the comp to know that if people know if they're versing South, they're going to have to play very well, because we're just well coached, well disciplined, fit team of close girls that know what they're doing, and we're not going to go away. And I think that's a really big goal of mine, is just to make sure that we've got the opportunity now to really establish ourselves as a great brand in women's rugby in Sydney, and I'd like to do that this year. In terms of my ambitions, at the start I had zero ambitions for for coaching. I just thought it was going to be, a little thing that I'll do to keep busy, because I always get told I've got, ADD or ADHD and I can't sit still and I need to be doing stuff. So I thought this would probably be good for me. But recently, the more that I do it, the more I feel like I might be able to, go to another place and coach and that sort of thing. So I do a lot of professional development on that. Like I listen to a fair few podcasts and coaching podcasts and things like that to get other ideas and things like that. But look, disappointingly for me, I was very close to accepting the UTS Aon coaching role for this year, but that competition's now gone. So in terms of where my pathway or things like that is as a coach, I think that's still a little bit away now. So, but I would look at it in the future.
Yep, keen to see you flourish in that. So that's mad. My final question for you, Chris, is your favourite memory from the Rebelettes, backing date, anytime.
Ooh. Right, there's been a few real good memories. I'm going to say one first, which I'm not going to say is the best one, but I'll. Libby Holloway running down the wing is one of the things that happens. Like, I don't know why. She loves doing it, but for those that don't realise, Libby's she's been with us from day one, really big, strong, fast player, and there's just something hilarious about when she gets the ball in the wing and runs, and she loves fending people and that sort of stuff. So funny memories, like good memories, is every time Libby gets the ball in the wing is a good memory for me. But outside of that, there's probably two that came to my mind straight away. So I'll put just behind the first place, I'll give you second place, which for me was the winning Scone in 2018. That was phenomenal, just circumstances that game. We were playing terribly, and we were losing 4 tries to 2, but they didn't kick any goals. So they were on 20 and we were on 14 because we'd kicked both our goals, and there was like a minute left. And Annalise Hughes, who's another Blue Mountains girl, she gets the ball for us and runs the whole field. And we're telling her to pass it inside because we knew we had to get the kick, otherwise we would lose 20-19. And she thought we were just yelling at her to cheer her on. So she dives in the corner and we had to kick the goal from the sideline. I remember Tian kicks this goal from literally the sideline and we won. And it was a difference of, I think, $2,500 in prize money was the difference, that kick. And that was just a great moment that sort of you get playing rugby. But I think the best memory for me definitely was the Borneo Sevens. That sort of took us from this park football team that's having a crack in Sydney and doing not too badly, you know what I mean? And that put us on the international map. I think I'll pinpoint it to a moment which was just before the kick-off to the cup final. We just got off the bus and we're getting mobbed by fans, and the stadium would add 3,000-4,000 people in it. And to know that that was I'd found that tournament, I'd liaised with them, I'd taken us there and given us and our program and the girls an opportunity to go and experience that, and being a hero, signing things and taking photos and all of that. I remember just before the cup final, looking around and we're versing this stacked team from Japan. We played terribly in the final, but it almost didn't matter. By that point, I was about to say we're all winners. That's a little bit that's a little bit cliche, but
that's not normally you.
in our own right, we were. It's the first time a women's team from Australia has ever gone to that tournament. As I said, we had 3,000 or 4,000 adoring fans that just loved our team for some reason. And we played exceptional rugby over there, except for the final. We lost that, but that was just an experience that I know anyone that was on that trip will take with them for the rest of their life. And I think that sort of makes all the late nights training and sort of headaches and all the hard stuff that we put in, and that hard work thing, that makes it all worth it, I think. So.
Yeah, they're epic memories. Well, that wraps us up for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Before we head off, are there any final comments that you'd like to share?
Not really. No, I'm all good. I think I just want to thank you for obviously putting this on, and it's a good thing for our squad to have girls as engaged as what you are to do things like this and keep the content coming and all that sort of thing. So well done. It's a good podcast. I've listened to the first 2 episodes now, so Delighted to be the third one for your kids.
Oh, chuffed. Little shout out for myself. All right. Thank you, Chris. Have a good day.
No worries.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye.
you too.